Hey folks, welcome back to another Battling Brushes with Sam, and we'll get to Rob in just a few more minutes. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be taking care of Zombicide Black Plague this month. As you already saw with our live episode that we tried last week, hopefully you enjoyed that and you kind of got an idea of the kind of models that we're going to be painting this month. But this week, I'm going to be taking care of Clovis and one of the fatties, not the guitar fatty, the guy that's kind of going, you know, but the other model sculpt, and showing you how I painted those two guys. And then Rob's going to be taking care of the runners. So hey, that's enough of me yammering. Let's get to the table. All right, so today we're going to be taking care of, first of all, Clovis, one of the heroes from Zombicide Black Plague, and then we're also going to be taking care of the one of the regular fatties. He's going to be nice and pale and plaguish looking, but we're going to do some different things with. There's a bunch of these guys in the game, so we're going to do a bunch of different things with their clothing and stuff like that. I'm just going to show you one of the sets in the video, and then but you'll get the kind of the idea. So we're going to start with Clovis, and Clovis's pictures all have this kind of bluish robe, and then he has some real pale tan in the middle for his tunic and robe, but his cloak is a blue color. So we're going to start on the back and get this good blue going. We're using Altdorf Guard blue from Citadel's paints for this. So we're just going to go ahead and get this going. And this is just the base coat. We're going to be coming back in later on and filling in all those good places. So just trying to get a good coverage on this one. Right, so as you can see, we did about 2.5 coats. The reason I say a half coat there is because that last third coat is really just kind of making sure that all of the higher edges have a nice blue color to them. Now we're going to go ahead and take some Xandri dust and get his inward robe and cloak. And be careful, because I didn't catch this before, but this down here is actually part of his cloak, whereas his robe is here. So be careful with that when you're doing them. We've got his robe finished in the Xandri dust, and we made sure to get the parts on the bottom and the back that were his robe and not his cloak. So we did do good on that. So now we're going to get his sword while all that other stuff dries, and with the sword on the base coat, we're just going to be doing a lead belcher, and then we'll probably be going over that with some iron breaker later on. But this is a pretty simple process here. I'm not going to do the hilt because the hilt is actually a brown color, so we're not doing the hilt just yet. Now we're going to be touching up some of the brown parts, like his staff, the hilt of the sword, and some of the stuff in between on his robes and that type of thing. So we're actually going to be using two different brushes. We're going to use this brush first for his staff, and then I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to get some of the other parts of him. So first of all, staff. Now that we have that staff done, well, with the base coat at least, taking care that we actually got down here as well, where it kind of pokes through the bottom of his robe and whatnot. We're going to go back and do some of these tassels that are hanging from his belt, and he has a little sash kind of thing going on here too, so we're going to touch those things up as well. Alright, so I did a little bit more work without being on the camera, just because it's the smallness of the miniature. And so what I did was I went ahead and put some Cadian flesh on his face, hands, and then after that I went through and did some Reikland flesh shade on just those little patches, just to bring out the flesh tone a little bit more. Then I took the white and did his beard and his hair. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take some Nuln oil and go over everything except for the skin. We're going to try to stay away from the skin as much as possible, and because of that we're going to be using a little bit of a smaller brush. A regular shade brush is that size. It's a pretty big brush, but we're going to be using something a little bit smaller, well, actually quite smaller, and we're going to go with this right here. It's a I don't know, it's a tester, but it's a smaller brush, so it's going to be able to get into those places a little bit easier, and we'll try to stay away from the fly. Okay, that looks pretty good for his hair. Now what we're going to do is we're going to switch to a bigger brush so that we can do his robes and everything like that. And we're going to go. Let's go ahead and hit his cane, just because we want to stay away from that flesh again. And while we're waiting on the Nuln oil on that guy to dry, we're going to go ahead and get started with the fatty zombie. Alright, but as you can see, all that ink is really working in there, and it's bringing a lot of shadows. All we really have to do is highlight and touch up. And as we get started with the fatty here, we're going to do his flesh first. I'm starting off with a Xandri dust, kind of a real putrid looking tan. I'm going to get his belly first here. The Xandri dust skin tone on his head. One of the things you got to really be careful with is not dropping your model. But you also need to be very careful with making sure you get all of the spaces where his skin is supposed to be showing through. There are some spaces like the back of his arm right here that might be a little bit more difficult to see if you're not looking for it. This is a little bit of a modified dry brush technique, so I'm really just trying to get just a little bit of lighter color on there. but still have the darker color shining, well, sitting underneath of it. And again, if it's splotchy, that's okay. This guy's not really in good shape. So all I'm doing here is I'm taking my just taking a rag or a napkin or something like that and just pulling it out like this. Pull out most of it, and then you can come back in. And then the strokes are going to be just very light, because you don't want to put a lot of paint on the model. You're just really wanting to get those highlighted areas. Alright, so for the fella's hood, it is a cowl that kind of comes along the front as well. So it kind of comes in here like this. Alright, so I went ahead and did the blue, and then I went ahead and did a white shirt. Then I took some of the Ustabi bone and dry brushed over the white to kind of age the, kind of deaden the white tone of the, didn't want it so stark. And now I'm going to take some Waflesh and give him some dark green pants, and then probably some Xandri dust for his shoes. And we'll be right back. Shouldn't take too long. All we're really going to be doing here is putting a dark coat on his pants so that it can just have a stark difference to the other colors that are there. Alright, so now we're putting some shade on Noon oil on the zombie. Got everything pretty much done. We're just trying to see if the Noon oil is going to work with us today and work its magic. Looks like it's doing pretty good so far. Clovis, I went ahead and we used some Ustabi bone and dry brushed over his cloak to lighten it up a little bit. We're going to go back and touch up some of the highlights in there, but for the most part he's done on that side. And now what I've done is I've taken some of this Calgar blue and dry brush. I'm going to try to hit the highlights on the back of his cloak here. See if we can do this, so that we can just kind of hit the raised edges so that nothing else is really getting into anything other than those raised edges. And the sword here is just going to be a real light dry brush of Iron Breaker, just to give it a little bit of a pop, so that it's not just that dull lead belcher. Okay. And that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you, Sam, and you're doing a wonderful job as you always do. Well, today I am doing one figure, well, a group of one figures. I'm only going to be doing the runners. If you noticed and if you saw the weekly show there, I've been kind of busy with the powerlifting competition. First of all, thank you everybody for all your support and all your wonderful letters to my email that you guys sent and everything that you guys sent to my channel. It meant so much. Winning and breaking those records was pretty special, and being able to share it with you guys was fantastic. So this week, because of course by the time you guys see this, I'll be done with my last part of the Olympics, the Senior Olympics. I'm just going to be painting the runners today, and what I'm going to do from there is we'll catch up all next week, since I'll probably be sore and have plenty of time. But hey, let's get down to the table and take a look at how to paint the runners.
Okay, first of all, here we go. We have a runner all primed up and ready to go. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with his pants. They're not really. It says black in the on the. They actually look black on the box, but I was actually thinking of going with a kind of a very dark green, almost kind of like a Wagah flesh, but because the color that I'm going to use for his flesh, I may just leave it black and then just dry brush over it. So I'm going to use a pallid witch flesh for our runner here. And again, guys, I want to thank you so much for being patient with me over the last 2 weeks with all these competitions and everything I have going on. It is the only time of the year that I actually get very busy. So for once, I am not painting at a mile per hour that I normally am. So again, I apologize and thank you guys for being patient with me this week. And of course, Battling Brushes and Sam, thank him for being so patient with me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover up his body here with this witch flesh, because it's very pale, and of course the zombies are just very pale to begin with, and we're going to be using this as the main color on the zombies. Now there's a couple of things that you can do with these guys to really kind of take them to the next level once you get all this painted on. Is you can take and really get this on here, and then you can go with a kind of like a Rygar flesh, so it kind of gives that very dusty kind of look. Or what I like to do is I like to take a wash, and it is an Athonian camo shade, which is a green wash, and go over it so they have that kind of pukey kind of look. And that seems to kind of work a little bit better for me sometimes. It depends what, because zombies are so, there's so many different variations. The one thing I don't like to do is I don't like to paint blood on these guys, and I'll tell you why. The blood always takes over the model, and that's one thing I really don't want to do. Okay? Especially if, you're going to play this game with kids, you don't want blood all over the place. So that is something, because it really stands out. And the other thing is it takes away from the model. They're not always full of blood. Well, unless you're watching Walking Dead, of course. Everything's bloody on that show. So they also had this black boot here, so we're going to try to go over that. And what we're going to do is I'm going to finish this up here, and when I get it right where we need to go on to the next level, we'll do that, and I'll catch up with you guys there. But let's get this all painted. Okay, so we've got all the pallid white flesh all over him to get him started. And as you can see, I left the clothing the way we wanted to, where we can decide what we wanted to do with it. I don't like the black rags, so what I'm thinking of doing is I think I'm going to leave the feet wrapping the way it is, and I'm just going to dry brush those gray, but I'm going to make these loincloth pieces here. I think I'm going to make those brown, and then dry brush those with a lighter brown. So I think that's what we're going to do next. So let's get out of brown and start working on that. Alright, so I was going to dry brush it first, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to go and I'm going to take a shot with the green. Now last week, if you saw, Sam broke out with the new oil. Let's see if I have some here. The new oil shade. And he put that over a very light shading, and it darkened it up too much. But he recovered really, really well because he dry brushed over it. So he really got that into the recesses, which looked really nice. But for these guys, that's not what I want to do. These guys, I want them that pukey green, like their flesh has been rotting for a while. So you take this, this flesh color, which is a very kind of pukey white, and then you add a green into it, and I think you're going to get a good effect. So, hey, let's take a look and see how it turns out. Of course, I could be totally wrong, but hey, what do I know? I'm just an amateur painter that I really, really enjoy doing. So we're going to take our wash, and we're going to really work this in. And we are going to work this in to all his, let's see if I can say the word, musculature. I'm such a butcher with words. And as you can see, we're getting exactly what we want, but we don't want it to pool up. We want to be able to move that shade around. See how I'm moving it around and making sure that it gets all in these areas here? See how just instantaneously and very simply, by just adding a little bit of shade in there over a nice pallid flesh type, it really, really starts to bring how disgusting this guy really, really is. And they're disgusting in the game to begin with. I mean, anything that moves that fast. I mean, this game is brutal. I can't wait to play it with Sam. For once, we all get to play together. It's a co-op game. Can you believe that? Usually we're all facing each other, or Tomrick making an appearance and throwing a beating on everybody with that OP character. Why don't Cool Mini or not make a Rob and make him really overpowered? There you go. A Robrick. I'm only kidding. I don't worry about stuff like that. And then what we're going to do, and I see where it's pulling up a little bit, so I'm going to show you how we're going to take and we're going to move this around. And I'm just taking this straight out of the pot. We're not watering it down because we really want that green effect. And let's get his heels here. That's where we really want to get it in there, because it's not going to affect the brown, so you can be a little harsh with the brush there. You don't have to be perfect. Alright. Oh, there we go. He's starting to come together. Now, all we're going to want to do is just... Now, if you ever put too much wash on something, dry off your brush. Just take your paper towel, dry off your brush, and just, if you see in this spot here, just take and rub your brush over it, and your brush absorbs it all. And just move it around. Move it around. There we go. And look how quickly. You see how that gets in the eye sockets and everything there? See, I think that's a little light there, so I'm going to take and use this brush to move that around. Because you don't want to have a mixture, or you don't want to have one area dark and one area light. You kind of want a good balance with this wash. See how he was a little light there? You just go around and you move that brush around until you feel everything's nice and even, and it will all come together. All right, there we go. All right, this guy's looking pretty creepy if you ask me. Just the way we want him. So let's let him dry and then we'll come back and guess what? We'll do a little dry brushing here and believe it or not, we'll be done for this week, which is not a bad thing. And again, I apologize for being short with my videos here, but I will make it up and I will go a little bit longer next week. And I'm sure Sam won't mind me taking up most of the video, since he'll probably almost be done with all his stuff. But I'll knock everything out for you. And then, you know what else I'm going to do is I'm going to paint up another runner. Only we're going to do the Agarath Urk shade. So we're going to do a brown runner too. So you guys get an effect. So you guys can choose which one that you would really like. But let's let this guy dry and then we'll dry brush him a bit and we'll finish him up. Sounds like a plan, don't it, folks? Okay, so I took some Rhinox hide and I put it on his clothing because I didn't like just the black. And then I took some from the Vallejo Marion Cabato, which is kind of like a Caboto or whatever the heck it is, and some white, and I mixed that together and right there, and all I did was take my dry brush, put it in there, and now I'm just kind of trying to get all the paint off here. And always use the bottom of your thing if you're unsure. And all I want to do is just go over and just bring out some of the highlights there. There we go. On the leggings. So it gives it that, just hit those high points. And that way it's not going to mess too much with the skin, and you could see it just gives it that kind of ghastly kind of look there, and that's all we're looking for. And this is a pretty easy figure, so I've got another 10 to do, and like I said, next week I'll show you how we do it a different way there. Alright, so that's what I got, and I got his pants to come out where it's looking kind of cruddy and ghostly, and of course you can see he's really, and we really got that wash into the recesses into his face, so he's really ghastly looking, and that's what we want. And that's pretty much how you do a runner really quick. You get those done really quick. They're very simple to do. They don't have to be super detailed, and there you go, beginner's way to do it. So that's it for me. Let's send it up top.
Well, there you go. That's how to paint a runner. And next week we'll catch up. The rest of the zombies are really easy, and I think you guys will really, really enjoy it. So, as always, hey Sam, why don't you take us out of here? And I'll see you guys next week.
Well, that's about it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Rob, for doing such a great job as you usually do. He's been taking the lion's share of Zombicide, even with his busy schedule. He's a real trooper, and I want to sincerely thank him for everything that he does for these episodes and for the Dice Tower channel. But hey, that's enough of all that. We'll see you guys on the flip side. Come back next week where I'm going to be taking care of Anne and the other guitar fatty. And then Rob's going to be taking care of more of those zombies. Man, he's got his plate full, but he's really plugging it out. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.